You're listening to Systemic Era Podcast. The failure was designed.
Trump faces rural revolt over his top legislative priority, based on an article by Travis Gettis. Trump wants a national voting crackdown. His own party keeps running into reality. Power is the point. Donald Trump is not floating a neutral election tweak. He is using the party's congressional machinery to try to bolt mail voting restrictions onto a broader ideological package, including attacks on transgender athletes and gender-affirming care for minors. That is not governance. It is a pressure campaign aimed at turning federal power into partisan discipline. The immediate obstruction is not Democratic resistance. It is Republican members and leaders who know the scheme is unusable, unpopular in their states, or both, that matters. The story is not about principled institutional coercion. It is about how far Trump can push the party before the operational needs of governing collide with his fantasies of control. Rural Republicans know the difference. House Speaker Mike Johnson does not have the votes for Trump's preferred version, so he has already retreated to a narrower bill centered on proof of citizenship requirements. That retreat is the real story. Johnson is not rejecting the logic of suppression. He is trimming it to something that might survive contact with a caucus. The resistance is coming from Republicans in sparsely populated states where mail voting is not a culture war prop, but a basic logistical necessity. Rep. Julie Fedorchak of North Dakota said the problem is not mail voting itself, but a near-total ban. Rep. Mark Amurdai of Nevada made the same point more bluntly: absentee voting needs structure, not elimination. These are not defenders of democracy in the abstract. They are politicians defending the practical realities of their own states against a nationalized panic script imported from Trump's grievance machine. Election integrity as cover. Johnson's line that 5 or 6 blue states abuse mail voting is the usual Republican laundering operation: take a broad public service, blame a few hostile examples, and sell restriction as common sense. California becomes the convenient caricature, the avatar of supposed fraud, because it is easier to inflame voters than to admit the truth that many states use mail voting without the catastrophe Trump keeps inventing. The source itself makes the lie visible. The Supreme Court recently blocked Trump's attempt to restrict mail ballot counting by executive order, and some Republicans welcomed that ruling as evidence that mail voting is not inherently corrupt. That is the part Trump world never once emphasized. The problem is not that voting by mail is evil. The problem, for them, is that it broadens participation beyond the narrow electorate they prefer. Johnson's retreat is not principle. Johnson's fallback to a slimmer bill should not be mistaken for moderation. It is legislative triage. When the full Trump package cannot move, the party narrows the attack to what can be sold as administrative housekeeping. That is how anti-democratic politics often survives defeat, not by disappearing, but by reducing itself into something more procedural and less obvious. The same is true in the Senate, where Sen. Rick Scott reportedly told colleagues and Trump directly that there is no consensus for the broader plan. He still favors the provisions. He just recognizes the arithmetic. This is not a moral objection. It is a management problem inside a party trying to reconcile an authoritarian impulse with members who must answer to voters in places where mail ballots are normal. The pattern beneath the fight. This is what modern Republican election politics looks like: a national effort to restrict voting, routed through slogans about fraud, then slowed down by the party's own geography. The rural wing is not becoming democratic out of conviction. It is refusing a blanket ban because its constituents need the very system Trump wants to stigmatize. That tension reveals the larger pattern. Republican leaders are willing to weaponize election administration, but they are still trapped by the fact that real states have real voters, real distances, and real needs. The authoritarian project keeps colliding with the ordinary mechanics of participation. The danger is not that the lie is weak. It is that the lie is now part of the legislative baseline, and the only thing stopping its worst version is Republican inconvenience. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Raw Story for today's article. With it automated voice of Bryce, thanks for listening.